This right here is a very common drug. And a lot of people, I think by now we all know that, that there's serious consequences to taking drugs and medications in ways that they are not intended to be taken. And it takes a skilled professional to deviate from, I guess you could call it like the standard. And I'll explain what I mean by that here in a moment. But this is acetaminophen. The brand name is Tylenol. Let's back up for a moment. One of the brand names is Tylenol. Technically, in the United States, there is no brand name, not for over-the-counter medications. If you wanted to, you could start an acetaminophen pill company, and you could call it whatever you wanted to. Call it Myconol. I don't know, I just made something up. You can do whatever you want. So, but I mean, we all know Tylenol, so we're all so familiar with it that it by default becomes the brand name. But anybody can name anything as far as over the counter goes, whatever they want to. This is a medication that is great for pain, muscle pain, fever. It's a good fever reducer. It can help with headaches a little bit. Let's see, those are the ones that I know. I don't like this here. It says the common cold. This is not going to help the common cold at all. In fact, that's just not correct. My goodness, if I were to say something this, aggressively incorrect, I would be hearing from it. I wouldn't be able to get away with that, rightfully so. But yet here, this is packaged here, and it says the common cold. This is not going to prevent, cure, or mitigate the common cold, I can promise you. I don't know why that's there. Minor pain of arthritis, this is true. I believe osteoarthritis specifically. Acetaminophen is recommended by the guidelines. Premenstrual and menstrual cramps. Okay. Temporary relieves fever. Yep. Toothaches and backache. Well, backache is muscle pain, pretty much. By the way, I want to talk about something here. Not too long ago, I think I had sciatica, which is like this nerve on like your ham hock back there on your gluteus maximus, kind of gets inflamed or whatever. And this really, really helped. I mean, it completely eliminated the pain I was feeling. But here's the thing, I don't really know what sciatica is. Pharmacists, I'm a licensed pharmacist in 4 states. And pharmacists are not trained one diagnosing. I don't know how to diagnose, so I don't really know if I had sciatica or not. But anyway, my leg hurt, but it wasn't like my muscles. And I mean to tell you, 2 of these bad boys, and it was so much better. And it lasted. It was kind of cool for me as a pharmacist to see this happening, because the dosing for this I was seeing happening in real time. I would take it. I would take 2 of these, so 1,000 milligram. It would take about 15-20 minutes, and then the pain was going away. And every 4 hours, almost like clockwork, I would have to take it again. And that's exactly how this is dosed, every 4 hours. Well, it says every 6 hours here, but it is common to use every 4 hours. So there's a lot of really interesting things about acetaminophen. One of which is that we don't know how it works. I think that's so cool. This little mystery. This little mystery box here, acetaminophen extra strength. Okay, I hate stuff like this. I hate it whenever they put extra strength on here and maximum strength and stuff. It's very confusing to a consumer. So acetaminophen comes in tablet form as a 325 and a 500. There is also a 650 milligram extended release tablet. I cannot confirm how actually extended release that extended release tablet actually is. I question if there's really anything special about the pill at all. Anyway, so whenever it says extra strength, all it's really saying is that it's not the 325 milligram tablet. Anyway, it also comes as liquid, by the way. And I also hate this. The liquid concentration is so weird. 160 milligram per 5 ml. Who in their right mind was like, okay, yeah, that's so easy for everybody. Let's just do 160 milligram per 5 ml. Give me a break. But here's the other thing. It also comes in a 500 milligram per 15 ml. But you rarely ever see that. I don't know why. Anyway, compared to active ingredient and extra strength Tylenol. Yep, that's about right. Coated tablets. We got a proud NDC here. We love to see it. Do not get coated tablets. I don't like this either, because the coating really doesn't matter in most cases, but it does in some. There is enteric coating, and enteric coating is very important. It helps protect the pill from your stomach. Otherwise, your stomach will eat it up and the active chemical will be useless. And people get freaked out about this. They see coated tablet and they think, oh, it has a special coating on it. I cannot crush it. I cannot split it. Most of the time you can, but only a pharmacist can really determine if you can or cannot split it. And in this case, you can crush these tablets if you want to. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, for people who have a G-tube, it actually might be easier to crush one of these tablets than it would be to pour all that liquid down the tube. Probably not. It would probably be just as easy both ways. 15 ml, that's not really that much. Or 20.3 ml or whatever it is if you do the 160/5 concentration. But, and no pun intended, if you have to give this rectally, which we have done, you can give this rectally. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, there's something called a Macy catheter that is used in hospice care. Because sometimes people can't, they can't swallow anything, liquid, tablet, whatever. And you gotta use the bum. But here's also something cool about this acetaminophen. It also comes in a suppository. And it actually comes, I think, in 3. It comes in a 650, a 325, a 120, and I think also an 80 milligram for little babies. That's a good point. Is this okay to give to children? Yes. Yes. But you have to dose it correctly. You have to dose it correctly based on the child's weight. And that can get complicated for some people. Anyway, we don't know how this works. Isn't that amazing? It probably has several different mechanisms of action. And this is said to have opioid-sparing properties. That's why you see it mixed commonly with oxycodone. If you buy, or if you get prescribed Percocet tablets, that's oxycodone and acetaminophen. There's also hydrocodone acetaminophen. And a lot of people, there's also Tylenol 3, Tylenol 2, which is codeine and acetaminophen, by the way. People, I've seen in my videos, they will say, well, they put the acetaminophen there to deter abuse. Okay, we are not in the profession of poisoning people. That is not why that's there. It may be a consequence of taking too much of it, toxicity. But that was not the intention of anybody. It's because it's said to have opioid-sparing properties. Let's see what it says here. The liver warning. Okay, so this product contains acetaminophen. Severe liver damage may occur if you take more than 4,000 milligrams of acetaminophen in 24 hours with other drugs containing acetaminophen, 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day while using this product. Let's talk about that. If you take more than 4,000 milligrams of acetaminophen per day, you put yourself at risk for developing liver toxicity. What happens is acetaminophen is metabolized by the liver. The liver enzymes use something called glutathione to take this acetaminophen and excrete it, basically is what happens. It's excreted, I believe, mostly in the kidneys, if I'm not mistaken. But if you take too much, your liver will use all of its glutathione, and there won't be any left. And then the acetaminophen levels build up. And actually, the acetaminophen itself, I don't even think is toxic. It's when there's too much of it in your body. Your body then has no choice but to convert it to something called NAPQE. And NAPQE is toxic. It's a similar chemical. So you should not take more than 4,000 milligrams per day. Now, what actually is the toxic dose? 7.5 grams. So about twice that much at one time. If you take 7.5 grams all at once, you will probably become toxic. And just by the way, yes, this is very fatal. Now, for many years, I knew that if you stayed under that 4,000 milligram per day limit, everything was going to be okay. I had no clue how prevalent acetaminophen overdoses actually are. I believe it was the second leading cause for liver transplants. Right here, I'm holding it. I'm holding right here. The second leading cause for liver transplants. Half of the overdose hospital stays from acetaminophen are unintentional. I'm going to spell that out for you because it confused some people the last time I said that. That means half were trying to uninstall, and the other half were just taking this normal. More than likely, they didn't know, that they were prescribed something like Percocet that has acetaminophen in it, Ultracet, Tramadol, acetaminophen, and then they probably bought this over the counter and took it on top of that. And also, if you also have liver failure, before that, that's also going to play a factor. And perhaps heavy drinking. By the way, you can actually drink a little bit with acetaminophen. Don't. You shouldn't. There's no reason to. But you actually can. In fact, having alcohol with acetaminophen reduces the likelihood of becoming toxic. But still, it's not by enough that it matters. So don't do it. But the way this is written here, it says 3 or more every day. Yeah. I'm saying you can take a little bit for the first dose pretty much. But don't. There's no reason to do that. But I had no idea it was that common. So I've heard people say if acetaminophen were discovered today, it would require a prescription. And I believe that now. After seeing the statistics, yeah, I believe it. I think it should be a prescription-only medication. Because okay, forget the morality of this for a moment. Forget that, you don't want your fellow human to have liver toxicity. Think of it strictly from a financial perspective. Do you know how much a liver transplant costs? Probably more than what you would want to pay. Okay, even if you have an employee-sponsored healthcare plan, if you buy your own private insurance, that money that you pay every month, it's not random. Your healthcare premium is not random. Things like the amount of people expected to have a liver transplant this year, you're paying for that. We all are. And if we can take that number and reduce it by simply making this a prescription, I'm all for that. So yeah, I was shocked. Now, if you stay under 4 grams per day, you're going to be fine. From a purely scientific perspective, the overdose on this is pretty cool. If one were to take 7.5 grams, or more, it'd probably be more like 10 grams. Really wouldn't feel anything until about 4 hours after. It takes that long because your liver has to be depleted of glutathione first. And what's really, really neat about this, well, actually, it wouldn't quite be 4 hours. It would be like, I think it's like the first day or something. There's 4 phases, right? The first phase, you may be asymptomatic, or you may have some pain in your liver, your upper right quadrant, nausea, vomiting. Just feeling really tired. Or nothing may happen at all. It's really, really weird. And you know what's even weirder? As time goes on, if you feel bad in the first phase, the first day or so, you may actually start to feel better as time goes on. But you won't be getting better. Lab tests will show that you're getting increasingly sick. They'll show that your liver is starting to shut down. And then by the 3rd phase, you're going to get jaundiced. Your skin's going to start turning yellow. Your eyeballs will start turning yellow. And that's whenever things get really bad. That's whenever you uninstall. I think it's like between 1 and 3 days later is how long it typically takes. Wow, I've never actually seen these before. They're very pretty. They're sturdy boys. These are some sturdy pills. But look, what's really cool about this, the toxicity, is whenever your liver is being depleted of glutathione, it's obviously horrible. You know, your liver's basically shutting down and you're dying. It is a slow death. But you can reverse it with something called NAC, N-acetylcysteine. And what happens is if there's a suspected acetaminophen, acetaminophen overdose, the hospital will draw your acetaminophen levels out of your blood, and they'll compare it on this chart, and it's compared against time after exposure, or ingestion rather, I guess, and it determines if you're going to get NAC or not, N-acetylcysteine. And what N-acetylcysteine is, it basically, it serves the same function as the glutathione. It basically restores all the glutathione in your liver, kind of. And it's like, you know, I've used before the analogy of like a traffic jam. And it's like the workers, like there's one worker and there's like tons of lanes, you know, trying to get this acetaminophen out of the system, and there's only one worker there. So then all the drivers, they get upset and they turn into NAPQE, and then they start running around like punching the punching the road, and they're just furious because it's taking so long. So they're all NAPQE and they just punch and kick and get out of their cars and wreak havoc. And then the NAC, the N-acetylcysteine, it comes in and it's like all these extra workers. Like, they just all show up at once. They're like, they go from having one lane open to like 70 lanes open. And then all the NAPQE people get in their car and they go through the toll booth. The Phantom Toll Booth by Norton Juster. Yeah, I said it. So what? I like the Phantom Toll Booth. The Phantom Toll Booth was the first ever book that I've ever read that I enjoyed. Oh my goodness. Where do you guys think these tablets are made? Do you think CVS has its own factory where it's making little acetaminophen tablets? Yeah, right. Get real. Get real. They're buying this from another company. We're getting a contract lab to make this. It's probably the same ones that make Tylenol. It's not, though, because I can tell by the shape of the pill. But yeah, they don't own their own lab, folks. They don't do it. People keep asking me how come acetaminophen is called paracetamol in the UK and everywhere else, I think, except for Canada and Mexico. I think they call it Tylenol in Mexico as well. And I don't know. There is no answer. People often try to say, well, it's because of the name of the structure. That's not what the question is. The question isn't how they got their name. The question is why it's different in different parts of the world, and I don't know. There will probably be a comment in this video of somebody telling me it's because it refers to the structural paracetaminophol or whatever it's called. That's not what we're asking. We're asking why is it different? At what point was somebody like, okay, we can't call it that. We have to call it something else. I don't know. But this is cool. This is cool. Very common, very ubiquitous, very versatile as far as dosage forms go. You can give it in the butt. Can you give a patch? Probably not. I've never seen topical acetaminophen before, and I'd be very skeptical if I did. I'd be very skeptical, folks. But I mean, there's liquid. Could you give it buccally? Probably. Probably. But that's everything you need to know. Keep it below 4 grams a day, folks. And you'll be fine.